that would pass through the SEC. Because the SEC will say, well, that's ordinary business. You know, if you say to Monsanto, if we write a shareholder proposal that says, Monsanto, you know, we want you to stop making genetically modified seeds within 5 years, you know, and show us how you're going to do it, you know, by September of next year or something. Well, the SEC would throw that out because that is integral to their, it's called ordinary business. The company is based on GMOs. And now you can write a shareholder proposal, which people have done. We have not, but other groups in our country have. There's a group called As You Sow, I believe. They wrote a shareholder proposal on lobbying, how much the company is spending on lobbying about GMOs. You know, the labeling, you know, labeling issue, there's that issue. Lobbying against the labeling votes that have happened, like in, I think, Oregon and Vermont and
California.
Yeah, and Colorado, they had votes. So that would not be considered
Ordinary business.
right.
So with that, I hesitate to get too far into the weeds on some things here, but when did it become, do you know when it became part of Monsanto's ordinary business, the genetic modification of seeds? And how did they just fall into that with the SEC and with their own business plan? Because it wasn't always.
Well, no, I think the first genetically modified seeds were in 96. 1996 was the first experimental, which would be their production site, you know, the experimental. And, you know, it just grew from there.
And so the SEC has oversight over that. I just want to understand this a little bit. They have oversight over whether that is ordinary business or extraordinary business in a corporation, and they just accept that from the time a company starts to do that, starts this new endeavor. They just accept that, and from then on, it's the company's ordinary business, and it'd be very hard to challenge that company to change that direction of that.
Yeah, because, you know, over the years, that has become the major product of the company. They still have hybrids, you know, vegetable hybrids, corn.
Well, they still have
some
chemicals,
of that.
and they still have
Right.
chemicals.
Yeah, chemicals in the agricultural field. They're not doing Agent Orange and all that stuff anymore like they were involved in, yeah, but that's gone. And they sold off another branch of them to the bovine hormones. They sold that off a few years back to Eli Lilly, so they're not in that anymore. But yeah, I mean, that's just a whole other story about how that all came about. You know, I mean, the FDA gave them the okay, the USDA, and so, you know, all that has come about. Okay, any other questions or comments so far?
You know, while you're on the subject of shareholder proposals and
Yeah.
Monsanto, you might talk about the proposal from Moms Across America.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to say something about that?
Oh, I'd rather hear you talk about it. I think you were there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was at the shareholder meeting for Monsanto is in the end of January every year, and there was a shareholder from proposal by a man named John Harrington, who's he's what you would call an activist shareholder, and he's in California. Anyway, the proposal was, it seemed like a very benign proposal. It was to ask the company to be able to, any shareholder with more than $3,000 worth of shares could nominate a board member. Oh yeah, you had to have the $3,000 worth for 3 years, and you could nominate a board member to the board. So that is, you know, pretty unusual for any shareholders. It's a very, the way most board members are brought to the company is through other companies that search for board members. So I just kind of thought, well, this is a rather innocuous thing. It didn't mean much to me. Well, it turns out the whole idea behind it was to have a pediatrician on the board. There's a group called Moms Across America. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
Okay. And so this was the whole idea behind it, is to get a pediatrician on the board who will say that glyphosate is, harmful to children. And so that was the woman who came from Moms Across America spoke at the annual meeting many times. And it was interesting.
What is glyphosate?
Glyphosate is the chemical that's in the genetically modified seed that resists the herbicide.
Oh,
It's
and
the
the
Roundup.
It's the active ingredient in Roundup.
okay.
Right.
And it's detrimental to children.
Mhm.
So did they get the pediatrician elected to the board?
Well, no, they don't have a pediatrician, but she got 53% of the vote from the shareholders. So the company responded that, yes, we will look at this definitely, and apparently this resolution appeared in many companies this year, probably in other agricultural companies, similar things. And so Mr. Grant, who is the CEO of Monsanto, said that, yes, we will definitely look at this. We will look at how other companies will handle this vote. And,
So in that situation, the company is responsible for finding that board member, or?
no, the shareholders,
The shareholders.
as a shareholder, if you have $3,000 worth for 3 years, you could nominate somebody.
And the shareholders as a group can vote on that
Right.
board member?
Yes. Every year you vote on your board members if you own, shares in the company. You have one share, one vote. So
And-
that's all part of your proxy that you get in the mail, is your board members.
And for example, if you were in favor of a particular pediatrician, how do you get that information out to the other shareholders that this is the candidate that they should be?
Well,
Looking
yeah, I
at-
mean, this is something that's gonna have to be worked out, because it's never
It's
been
never
done
happened.
before.
Mhm.
So the company will have to, if it, this is a non-binding vote, so it's a non-binding vote. But if the company is smart, they will work this out, and see what happens.
And if they didn't work it out?
Then
Shareholders struggle on.
this could come back every year for ad infinitum. If she's getting, or he is getting 53% of the vote, it could go up every year, it could go down.
Well, Barbara, it seems to me that key insight to understand from all of this is that when you're looking at these large global corporations like Monsanto, that largely they self-select to their board. In other words, it's up to the board that's already there and the highest management levels to self-select others that are like them as far as the business world is concerned. So this is really a radical new invention that this man came up with, that these shareholders could nominate someone to the board by this little mechanism that they insert into their process. That's really becomes revolutionary.
It could
Because
be.
they always self-select. That's why, it becomes groupthink. Everything they do is about everything they've ever done before.
Yeah, to some extent, I mean,
Unless
every
you have
com-
socially responsible
Well,
investors.
that's.
Yeah, every company has to innovate and move along, or else they die. And I think what we're seeing in this country today is more questioning of how corporations work. We're definitely seeing more interest in the pay gap, for instance, and yeah, how board members are chosen. It's not so much that board members are not allowed to nominate other board members. They hire a corporation, a company, who will search for board members. And I mean, if you read your annual report, you'll see that, you know, let's say on the Ameren board, there might be somebody that is, works for ExxonMobil, or, you know, there's a cross-sector thing going on. There's an academic on most of these boards. There might be somebody from, it might be an
Anchor.
yeah, it might be somebody that's somebody in human rights, or it might even be somebody that, let's say in Monsanto, it might be somebody that is an expert in baby food, you know. So they look down, up and down their supply chain for board members, and these corporations that look for board members nominate or suggest, and then the board members have to vote on those people as, you know, their board turns over and that sort of thing. So,
I have a question, kind of comment. Don't they outline what that board member has to have already, certain qualifications? And the only reason why I ask this is because I happened to come across a show, but they were focusing on growing minorities, or trying to get more minorities onto their boards. And I do realize that there are some boards where you have to be like a certain upper level management, like so far up that it just automatically excludes a lot of people. And so they were trying to work it as trying to groom people, so to speak, to increase go up through the management level before they can even be considered, hopefully, to be on a board of directors. And I realize that takes years, potentially, to even get to that point. This little radical language that I love so much, is there, at least in Monsanto, is there some kind of qualification for you to be a board member, where it might, you know, like, it would kind of, I'm just thinking, how could you work around that little radical language if they already have something, a rule that says you have to be, you know, serve so many years, have some kind of prior experience. It could kind of overshadow, you know, this little budding revolution. Have you come across any kind of conflict, or perhaps there would be another kind of like policy that would have to be worked out, or additional rule worked out to actually make that work?
well, I don't know about a rule.
I don't even know what it's called, or what it would.
But
The
Barbara, when they-
qualifications for a board member, the
Right, but it would be
qualification.
lined into some
Yeah.
kind of rule book, or.
You know, I don't know.
Well, I'm sure that when these this is the whole, they're not just waiting for something to happen and see how things turn out. But when they hire a company to go out and headhunt for them, for their board, they have a list
Oh, sure.
of requirements. So that company is hemmed in by what it is that top management already sees as fits in with their corporation. It's got, you know it is. I mean, they're not leaving anything, they're not leaving any loose ends that they can think of out there. So, you know, they're getting what they've always got in to a certain degree. And that's why it takes so long to change, and whatever path they get set on, they can just continue on for decades, even if it's very detrimental to the larger society, because there are things going on.
Well, the groupthink and the fact that most shareholders just rubber stamp the board, which is a big
Right.
mistake. And, you know, one of the ways that we look when we vote, most ICCR members, we do look for diversity, and we look for, well, diversity, women, minorities, people of color. And, you know, you would be surprised if you look at some of the companies, Monsanto is one who does have diversity on their board. There's another company we work with in St. Louis, which I'm not gonna say, has zero diversity. It's all white men. And, you know, that is something that, as I mentioned at the beginning, some ICCR members have really gotten on that bandwagon of, you know, the diversity on boards. The thing is, as you were saying, there are certain qualifications that you have to have. I mean, you don't want to have somebody go sit on a board that really doesn't know how to operate a business, how to read the annual report, the financial report. You don't want them, you want them to be able to sit there and contribute and give to it and know a business. So, for instance, the woman who is an African-American woman who's on the Monsanto board, she has her own business. And